Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Life. I'm Rob Edgerly with Main Life Real Estate, brokered by EXP, and we are here joined today with an old friend of mine, we just figured out 11 years. She is a stellar agent. She's been in the business for a long time and really knows her stuff. If you ever get a chance to co-broke with her, you're going to want to co-broke with Tami Goodrich. Really excited that she's here. She's got a really great story that I wanted to make sure we talked about, and welcome, Tami.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. It has been over a decade, so we're both getting old.
We're both getting old. We figured that out at but it's been a good 10 years, and it's been, we've been just going up and up and up in our careers and this market.
Absolutely. It is really fun to reflect over 10 years as to how life can change so drastically. I know we're going to get too drastic in a little bit around my story, but it really has been 10 years because whenever I met you, I was penny pinching. I mean, we were living paycheck to paycheck, and you were such a great mentor too. Like, I remember just coming into Keller, whenever we were at our agency together and at Keller Williams Realty, and I was like, I need to take this guy out. I need to have lunch with this guy and see what he's about. And I remember asking you some pretty hard questions. Do you remember that?
I do. Thank you. Would you go to Pamen Miyake or something like that? I think that was
Miyake. That's right.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. Can't wait for everything to get completely opened back up again. Yeah. So we can do that again.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
I was really struck because you asked a lot of really great questions, and I've always appreciated that about you, that you're a serious business person. You know your craft. You've learned your craft. You looked to other people. Like, I think all of us are trying to do better in this business and in their whatever career you're in. You look to, okay, who else can we network with? And that's really what this whole show is about, and that's why I wanted to have you on here, because I guess it was a couple of months ago now. You and I were talking about a particular deal, I think, and I hadn't talked to you in a while, and you shared your story, your family story, and I so appreciated it because it made me start to think about what that meant for me. And then I thought, okay, we really need to make sure other agents hear about this, because it is a personal story, and it has a lot of really big repercussions if we don't listen to that story and really get into action. And I admit that I haven't even gotten into action about some of these things. So this is going to be a reminder for me. I know a lot of people that are going to watch this are going to say, I need to get in gear. So tell us a little bit about it. I'll let you share the story in your own words.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for having me. This is such a pleasure. Many people in the real estate profession know this. About a year and a half ago, I was out at an open house, and my husband was on a trip. So he's a rock climber, and he was out on a trip, and I'm also very athletic, whereas, a triathlon. And so whenever we're in our sport, we respect that time, because if I am on my bike or out swimming, like, he's not just going to call me in the middle of it. He's not going to call me whenever I'm in my training. So there's utmost respect. So the only time we would call each other, if, weather turns. And I remember that day I was just closing down my open house up in Brunswick, and I got a call from Sean. Now, he was in the White Mountains at the time. And I jokingly pick up the phone and say, "What's going on? Is it hailing on the mountain?" Because the only times you could really, take yourself down is if the ice was all rotted, the weather turned on you. And this was around noon, 1:00 in the afternoon. And on the other end of the line was his climbing partner. And he was it was very monotone. He was saying, "Hi, Tami. This is Aaron. Sean's had a bad fall. Oh. It looks really bad." Now, at that point in time, we don't know really how bad things are. I've gotten these calls before. He's broken his ankle. He's fallen before. And I know the drill. The drill is go home, take care of my daughter, figure out where she's going, if either she's coming with me or not, pack an overnight bag, because if any protruding bone is exposed, you're going into surgery right away to prevent infection. So I just said, okay, where are you? And I said, okay, I'm on my way. So I knew he was in the White Mountains. I didn't know what trail. He said he'd call back. I think he just didn't, it was so shocking to him. I'm sure he knew what trail he was on. I just knew he was on Cathedral Ledge, which is a very, a lot of people get into trouble on Cathedral Ledge. Let's just say that. So, and I didn't know that at the time. So I came about and ran home, figured out picked up my daughter, packed her bag, packed my bag. My daughter ended up deciding she wanted to just stay with a friend instead. She didn't want to miss school the next day. She's such a good student. And on the way home, I got a call from another friend of mine who was planning on coming home or coming over to my house and helping me out. We were building a chicken coop together. And I'm like, hey, Pat, I'm sorry. My husband, Sean's just had an accident. I don't know how bad it is. I just need to get to North Conway. So he hangs up. He's like, okay, good luck. Great. A few minutes later, his wife calls and Carol, and she is saying, no, I'm going to drive you. I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. Like, I'm not going to take any time out of my day, out of your day to take me to North Conway. It's like 2.5 hour drive there, 2.5 hour drive back. It's a beautiful Sunday, just beautiful out. And then the only way she convinced me was to say, well, didn't he drive there? I'm like, oh yeah. A ride would be good. Yeah. So that way I can drive my car back. So I didn't think anything of this. She came and picked me up. I had not eaten by that time. We stopped for ice cream. I'm like, yeah, I probably need to get something. So it was probably 3.5 hours from the time he fell to the time we were driving into the North Conway area. And I still hadn't heard back from his climbing partner.
Wow.
And then, soon after we did hear from him, they had just gotten him off the mountain. Like it took them, what had happened was he had fallen and like almost a pendulum swing down into a ledge right on his buttocks, bounced off and was hanging upside down.
Oh my gosh.
So I was getting a description once I met back up with his climbing partner. I saw him and he was completely white. And of course, it was a long day already trying to get Sean down. And I was very, being a climber's wife, we know what the inevitable could be. This is one of the most dangerous sports in the world. And we are very upfront. And I will tell you, Rob, even being as upfront as we are, we do laugh and we kind of chuckle. It's like, well, if we're going to die, we want to die on the mountain. It's a running joke, but then also this underlying, it's the truth. So for those of you who think that we don't talk about the inevitable, Sean and I do. We're always thinking about that. We're talking about it through our life insurance policies. And so whenever I went in and was talking to Aaron, thank God for Aaron, because even though he could not see him, because he popped down over on the other side where he could not see Sean. All he knew was he saw his feet dangling or up in the air. And then it's like, I guess Sean was screaming. And Aaron says, I'm not letting you down until you upright yourself. Now, I haven't told you what injuries he has, but whenever you hear his injuries, most of us would never have gotten ourselves upright. They finally lowered it to the ledge. There are climbers right next door. There was a doctor that was actually climbing that had heard him fall. Oh, and wow. So everyone came over, started helping him. So he was bleeding out through his elbow. He has no elbow right now. So the bones stuck out. So you had one person holding everything together and trying to stop the bleeding that way. And then it took them over 40 plus climbers that day from all around the mountain came to carry him down. Wow. I should say carry him up, because the best way to do it was kind of carry him up and around and then down off the mountain. And they were checking with him because they didn't know what was wrong. So by the time I got back to him, ambulance came in, the hospital finally let me back, because they wouldn't let me back there in the beginning because he was going through testing. As I look back, I mean, this is, that I've processed it whenever I can kind of chuckle now. Yeah. This has been a whole year of working through the trauma of this. I just look down, there's rocks everywhere. His backpack has been cut off of him. His pants have been cut off of his legs. He is completely gray. What I don't realize is there is all kinds of things tied up to him. And they started running down the list of items. And I love my exercise and I love being out there. I do not know injuries besides if I tear a muscle, I know what to do. If I break something, I know what to do. I mean, those are the two things. If I break, all right, cast. If I tear, rest. And ice and hot. That's pretty much what I know. So whenever they started listing things out, what they told me there is broken neck. And in my mind, I thought, fixable. Okay. And this is what Rob, you and I have in common. We're so positive.
We're just solution, right?
I'm like, fixable. So broken neck, fixable. Broken back, fixable. Broken, shattered, blown out elbow, fixable. Shattered pelvis, broken in pieces, fixable. Yeah. Shattered sacrum, fixable. Oh my gosh. Torn aorta. Now, torn aorta, and in my mind, I went straight to the word torn, thinking muscle. Why are you even telling me this? This is something I have no idea what is, but it's a muscle. I don't really care about it. I'm concerned with his neck, his back, his elbow, his sacrum, and his pelvis. So they did a great job in not really telling me any more than that. They did tell Carol and Aaron, who was there with me. They pulled them aside, and what they told them is he has a class 3 aorta tear. Now, for all of us out there that don't know what an aorta, it's your main heart muscle. Yeah. So he was bleeding out. Class 1 tear means they don't, they're monitoring. Class 2, you're in trouble. You're going in for surgery. Class 3, yeah, you're really bleeding out. You have hours.
Wow. So would he fall and hit something that made?
Usually, right. The impact of the fall, which was over 25 feet, tore his aorta. And that just tells you how hard the fall was.
Yeah.
Wow. So there was a lot of other internal things going on. So he had punctured kidneys and bladder and, pancreas, all these other things. But they were most concerned about that torn aorta. I was not concerned about that because honestly, I was ignorant. I thought it was just another muscle. Why are you concerned with this? So the medical teams told my friends and Carol and Aaron that, we need to get him to Maine Med. So here I just drove from Maine to him, and they're like, okay, we need to get him to Maine Med because they are the best multi-trauma. And that all made sense to me. What they told them is he's likely not to make it.
Wow.
So they walked back into me and said, hey, we've already called a helicopter. He's going to be a lot more comfortable if we fly him to Maine Med versus take an ambulance. That made sense to me. I mean, broken, shattered pelvis and sacrum. Yeah, that makes sense. And what my friends did for me is they got me on that helicopter. They did everything. They did everything they could to get me on that helicopter. Luckily, I'm also somewhat light because the pilot comes in and he starts calculating everyone's weight.
Oh, right.
And figuring out how much he can fly. And they were phenomenal. And best helicopter flight of my life. I went out there, did not even see that it said the words life flight on it. So I got in the helicopter and he was back behind me once they got him in, and they were keeping within a certain altitude because they didn't want to put in more pressure on his heart. So we were flying very low.
Wow.
And I was screaming about it. I'm like, Sean, this is amazing. That's the Saco River. Wow. I had the flight of my life. It was amazing, Rob. And it wasn't until we touched down at Maine Med at the top, and the pilot came over and he said, I want you to hold Sean's arm or hand, the other side, the ones that not blown out, because you're going to be met with 4 teams and they will whisk you away from him. So hold on. So we made it in, and yes, there were a ton of people around surrounding him, trying to figure out what to do, prepping him for surgery.
So he's messed up. He's got a lot of different things going on. Mm-hmm. You're amazingly focused on the positive, which I understand. I see that in you. So it's good. He's lucky to have had you there, focusing everybody. What happens
next is his cardiovascular surgeon, Dr. Aronson, came in and he finally got say drugged up enough to where he could actually talk. And the doctor was, he was talking about the heart and what this meant. And lo and behold, that question came out. The question came out, and he asked the doctor, Doc, am I going to be able to climb again? And he looked him straight in the eyes, and he didn't do what I told him to do. He said, my job is to keep you alive. And at that moment, I figured out, holy crap, I may never see my husband again. And at that point, I think the drugs really impacted my husband because, he turned to me immediately, and I hardly ever see my husband cry. And he started crying. And he told me he's scared. He's never scared. He's an adrenaline junkie. And so, I go to my spiritual side and said, think positively. Surround yourself with positive white light. So I'm saying all these things to him as he's wheeling away. I'm like, I love you. Keep that in your thoughts. And he turns to me and it cracks me up to this day. He's like, no, I got this. I totally got this. And I'm like, no, you totally don't got this.
The power of the drugs, right?
Exactly. That's what they told me. They're like, that's the drugs speaking, Tami. But that's the attitude that he walked in there with. No, not walking in, rolled in with.
Rolled in, right. Wow.
We didn't walk for months and months after that.
Yeah. So obviously is he fully recovered now?
He will never ever be fully recovered.
Is he going yet?
Yeah. So, we went through, he was in intensive care, and then we got him into a rehab center. So he spent 3 weeks in rehab. It took him weeks to even sit upright because he would pass out. So we went through being bedridden to wheelchairs, walkers, cane, to finally he was upright.
Wow.
So today you will, from the outside, Rob, you will think that nothing has ever happened to him and he's in better shape than his entire life.
Wow. From
the inside, it certainly has changed things. You know, the way he sits, the way he walks. He has to manage his pain. This is pain management. It's chronic pain for the rest of his life. And the possibility of, on the other side of this, if he were to have any other accident in any way, this could be crippling because he has 2, I would say 12-inch screws to hold his pelvis together.
Wow.
And he has plates. He has screws in his elbow. Like it's, yeah. So 2020, unlike many people, was the most glorious year of our lives.
Yeah. When did this accident happen? Was it 20?
This was September of 2019. So the fall of 2019. So we got him walking in 2020. Or at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. He was standing upright. Let's just say that.
Wow. Long road back.
It's been a long road. And yeah.
So what were some of the things that, what struck me was that in addition to your proactiveness and your positivity, when we talked last time, there were some things that you did and you encouraged me to do as far as getting ready for something like this, right? What's the lesson for all of us that you learned through this?
Yeah, well, whenever you are struck with an 18-minute helicopter flight that's $25,000 alone, and that's not even starting to begin to look at the medical care that is needed from the surgery to the ICU to the rehab at home, and just an incredible loving support group. Number one, you don't got friends, get them. I mean, the people that came out during that time, you will find are the ones who truly love you.
Yeah. Love that.
So my friends were waiting for me whenever we flew in, you know, Pat Will, Justin Whitney, my business partner and great friend, Lucy Tucker. She was supposed to fly out the next day. I was supposed to be covering her on vacation. Guess where she was that night instead of packing? Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Yeah.
This is where I get emotional because the love that's displayed in this is incredible. Those are the blessings. So, you know, of course you could say, okay, have a great healthcare insurance plan.
Yeah.
That doesn't take care of helicopter flights. That doesn't take care of what happened if my husband would have died. At the time, I had an 11-year-old daughter. What happens then? So it really got us thinking about, we have wills that we set up 12 years ago, 13 years ago, right after she was born.
Right.
I think probably many of us do. Oh, major life occurrence. We gave birth.
Yeah.
It's time to figure out what to do. All right, we've got health insurance. Great. We put together a will. But in 10 years, we were talking about this, Rob, that in 10 years, you know, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I didn't have anything to will anything to. You know, I was just be happy if my family members would have taken her in at that time.
Yeah.
So it really
like who's going to have guardianship if something like that happened, right?
Yeah, right. Guardians, advisors. What's going to happen to your assets? What about your house, your cars? What about, I'm thinking, my journals, all the journals I've been writing into since I was a teenager that I would share with my daughter one day to say, you know what? I had it rough too. I went through depression. Being a teenager kind of stinks. and sharing that with her. My husband has a comic book business. Yeah, there's investment in comic books, but what about his personal collection? Would they have just sold everything off? Where are those books that he would want to pass on to my daughter? So that way there's a piece of him that is still here, that she can do what she wants, whether she wants that for sentimental value or she wants that for a down payment of a house. We wanted to make sure that if anything were like this would happen again, if he died, we would know what to do. What would I do? Because I can't just pick up and start going. I will tell you, even though my husband was still alive and I had great caregiving and I had a great support, I went through a lot of trauma around that.
Yeah.
I was waking up with night terrors, and that's a part of it. I'm not a victim that way typically to say, oh no, that's not trauma. I'm not going to label that. And it finally got to the point where I couldn't sleep at night, so I couldn't take care of him. So who could? So these are really tough questions, and no one wants to think about these. So if you don't want to think about them, hire someone to think about it for you. Delegate it out.
Did you hire an attorney or
I did. I hired Miles Hunt, who helped us go through estate planning. So I sent him. So of course, like we do, Rob, you and I, if I don't have someone, I'm going to my trusted people out there. I'm reaching out to say, who do you trust? This is one of the biggest decisions. If we were to die tomorrow, who's going to take care of Morgan? Right. So yeah, I reached out. I worked with Miles Hunt. He's out of Portland. He was fabulous. He could hear what we were saying, break it down to a level for me to understand. You and I work with trust on buying real estate.
Right.
I really had no idea the ins and outs of what a trust was.
Yeah.
I needed someone to break it down for me. There's a lot that I know, and there's a whole heck of a lot I don't know.
Right.
And I'm really good about saying, I need some help here. And I did. I needed help. I needed someone to say, yeah, your wills don't cover X, Y, and Z. And what if here's another thing. I big shout out to Schaefer Douglas Title. We work with them every day. They heard about this. They couldn't take my word for his treatment. I couldn't give them directives at the hospital until Sean gave me a POA over all his health. Things are timely whenever you're talking about things like that. So Michelle Celia actually showed up at the hospital, everything written up, had me sign it, had witnesses there, and literally all he could do was scratch with his left hand. And it was good enough. We had witnesses. That was that was his will. I needed to take it over, and then that responsibility.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm not surprised. Michelle and Eric and that whole crew, they're awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. And none of us are going to think about that until it's too late. That's why I really wanted to bring this up, because the light bulb went on for me. Like, oh my gosh, my Nadra and I go on a trip and something happens. I don't think we talked about one a long time ago, but I think we set it on the shelf or left it with the attorney because we couldn't decide who was going to take the kids. Right. And I didn't want to think about it and procrastinated, and that was 13 years ago. So
a little procrastination.
Yeah. So, this caused me to okay, let's pull this back up again. Let's do something about this now. And I think, a lot of us have to hear that message so that we don't get caught later on trying to figure these things out. So this attorney brought you through this list of here's some things to think about, and let's put this together. Right.
So in the order, so if you were to do one thing today, what would you do?
All right, get your pens out.
I would say number one, your will. Get your will taken care of. Figure out what your assets are and where things are going. Now, that will, it might just be an online form, and that's okay. Just get something out there so people know what your wishes are.
Right.
Number two, get a power of attorney over your spouse or your partner, or if you're single, someone that you trust that could take over your care if you cannot speak for yourself.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome.
That's number two. And those are easy. The reason why I'm saying those two, those are easy. And maybe the POA before the will, just because it can be done today. It's that simple.
Right.
And then the third is then really sitting down with an estate attorney or someone that you trust to do the will. So you're looking at all of your assets, all of your debts, your real estate, and asking those questions. We have a camp up a Sugarloaf. What's going to happen with that? And we want to make sure that that stays for Morgan to make a decision on, not just to be sold off. I mean, I'm a real estate investor, so yeah, sell everything else off.
Yeah.
But don't sell off our family camp. And my daughter, get your family involved. My daughter, Morgan, was a part of this process too. Like, so if there is a family that you would like to live with to stay in the same school district, my daughter's dyslexic. She has great tutors in the Yarmouth School District. They know how to teach her.
Mm-hmm.
So it was important to us to find someone that lived within that school district that she would feel comfortable going to live with. In addition to, they are not the only ones. So you can also have not only the guardian, you can also have someone who is advising them on big decisions. So if she wants to go to take her senior year and blow a ton of money out on a senior trip, it's not just your guardian. That's also someone, as a sort of like a co-guardian, an advisor, to make sure that she is making smart decisions on her personality, on who she is. Because Sean and I's philosophy isn't about buying stuff. I could care less if she goes to college. I mean, I'd love for her to go to college. I'd rather her have experiences.
Right.
So if it's money to be purchased on a car or a European trip, my guardian and advisor knows that's the European trip. That's not a car.
So is a guardian advisor different from the attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
The attorney only helps make sure and manages the trust. There's financial, like what is, so you also have the executor of your estate. And that is someone who's going into your home and making sure everything is taken care of. So the executive of your estate will go in. So let's go ahead and imagine, God forbid, Sean and I pass away, and we have all of our stuff in our house. What's going to happen? What's going to happen to our cars? Our printers, our tax files, our family loom quilts that I have.
Right.
So they are in charge of that detail, and they can get paid. They get paid a fair wage to be an executor of an estate. A lot of people don't know that. It's a pretty heavy burden.
Yep.
And they come in and they get paid. The firm that holds, so I worked with an attorney, established at a very good firm that I know is going to be there for years to come. They will make sure that everyone is contacted, make sure that everything is followed through based on our desires, and manage those accounts. So,
Right.
And we set up trust accounts. So if Sean and I go away, money will be held in a trust account. And the way we established it is she would be getting a certain amount at certain ages, not all at once.
Gotcha.
And the guardian would be taken care of also. So there'd be money set aside for the guardian.
Wow.
So the other big question, Rob, in this with Miles asked us, and I think this was one of the most fascinating questions. I loved it. He said, so what if you're going off to a family vacation and all of you die?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's not what I want to hear, but what do you do?
Yes. So what do you do? And it made me start thinking around this of, who would I want my assets to go to, sell
Right.
everything off. With Sean's comic books, who would be helping sell those? Well, his business partner, and then getting the professionals that really know how to do it. The fascinating question is who would we want our assets to go to, maybe beyond family? And you can distribute everything to family, but there are some pretty important organizations in our lives right now. Mm-hmm. The Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland. We foster care animals almost continuously, and we give back to them. And that's really important for my daughter. I'm an executive board member of Growing to Give, who grows organic food to feed people who don't have that capability, and supplying food kitchens or soup kitchens with that. So we started really identifying how we would want to leave a legacy and impact the community. And as soon as we started identifying those organizations, I was brought to a point of, why would we not be doing that now more?
Yeah.
Why? Oh, this is why I work, not just to take care of my family. It's to really bring something back to the community. And wouldn't it be nice if I did that and got to see what we were doing and help impact where that money would flow? Right. It changed the game for me. I thought, my goals are going to have to change, because I want those companies or those organizations to feel our impact as a family now, not just whenever we die.
Right. I love that. We've been talking a lot around the office around, what we're really talking about here is a plan, putting a plan together. Mm-hmm. And you've tied it right back into something that we talk a lot about with new agents and just team members, and that's vision. What is your vision, right? And if you know your vision, your planning can all fall into place, because you want to make sure that she's taken care of if something happens to you, and then even furthermore, if something happens to all of you, what happens? So there's a plan that goes along with your vision of your life, but it sounds like it's even more so brought out the idea that you have to be really clear on your vision now, and what can you do right now that fulfills your dreams and your vision for your life.
Yeah. And it was a great question, because you and I, we've talked about our goals. That was one of the big questions. Like, where do you see yourself in 10 years, Rob?
Right.
And you know what you said? I want a swimming pool for my kids. That was one of the things that you wanted at that time. And you checked that off. It brings us to a bigger conversation. It brings us in, because we can be really small-minded. Oh, I'm just this small little person making this small little contribution. And they're like, oh, we've gotten in the mindset, oh, here's my goal last year, I'm just going to double it this year. You're getting lazy then. You're not thinking big enough. You're not in the bigger questions or the bigger conversation to move you. And as I dive deeper into this question, it's, what do I love? What do I have passion about? So whenever I get up every day, I know exactly why I'm working. Even when it gets hard, I know at the end of the day, I'm making the bigger difference.
Yeah. Yeah. align to your vision, what you want out of your life.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's not just stuff, you know,
Not at
like,
all.
yeah, it's not just stuff. What kind of impact can we all have in our lives? We only get to do this once, so we might as well make as big of an impact as we can. And yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be money. You know, many
Right.
of our goals is so much about, oh, I want to make X amount this year. I want to help so many families a year. It is even better whenever, like Rob, you and I have talked about this. How many times can I take my wife, my husband, so we can connect and go out on a date? How many family vacations do we want to be on? What kind of experience do I want my family to have? What will it take for my teenager to get grit in this world? You know, what is grit? You know, there's a lot of discovery and learning that we have to do as parents, as adults, and taking responsibility. And then I would also back this up is, you said I was a very serious real estate agent, and I am, Rob. Since Sean's surgery, I've not only become better at my job, I have lightened up a whole heck of a lot because life is so short. And so Rob caught me last week on a vacation, completely impromptu. Impromptu because it was one of my former clients who invited me out to do it. And my husband will be going in for heart surgery again in a couple weeks. And he says, I want to do this for you. Caregiving is a lot of work. And he sees that. So go rest up. And now it's not just work hard, fall to exhaustion. And I know that's very much what the real estate business is like right now. I work hard, play hard, have fun hard, work hard, play hard, work out hard, like everything. And then whenever I rest, I want to really rest. But I want to see the world. I want to see the world in a new light that I've never experienced before. And Sean and I both say that his accident was the best thing that's ever happened to us as a family, as a community, and as loving partners to one another.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Caregiving, I wanted to caregive. Right. I thought it was the biggest act of unconditional love that I could ever have. And we joke about it. There was one day where I said, I never knew how much I loved you. And his response back to me was, yeah, me neither. And that's changed our whole relationship.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know if we need to go any further there. That seems like a good place to kind of reflect and let people come back to, because there's a lot of things packed into this 45 minutes here. You know, a harrowing story, really, which would have shaken a lot of us to go through that. And, you know, the power of positivity, like with yourself and then others around you, how you can really be a leader and reflect and get people focused on what they need to do. You got us into the steps that we should take in order to protect ourselves and our family and our loved ones and our legacy, right? And then just talking about our visions and what that looks like going forward, and remembering the important things in life as well. And that it's not just about selling.
You recapped really well, Rob. You made me sound really brilliant all of a sudden.
I took notes. You know, like reminding ourselves that it's not like we sell real estate. This is a great, you know, that's really what one of the things we wanted to really get into in this show is like real estate life is crazy at times, right? It's also very driven. It can be heartbreaking. And there's bigger things, right? There's things that are family that are much more important than our friends and our circle of people, and our impact are much more important than how many houses we all sell. It's about being real and honest and authentic and vulnerable. And I can't thank you enough for just sharing your story with us and with everybody else. And hopefully more people hear this story and they take notes on this and go out and get into action so that they can, you know, hold on to their legacy and help those around them and keep doing that. So thank you very much for sharing your story with us, Tami.
Well, thank you for listening, and I just thank everyone out there who really listens to what is needed and turn towards the hard questions. That's what I would leave you with.
Yeah. Thank you. And I know I think you said his name a few times. I want to make sure everybody knows your husband's name.
Yes. Sean Goodrich.
Sean Goodrich. All right. So Sean, we're rooting for you. I'm glad to hear you're on the mend, and everybody give a shout out to Tami and Sean so that he keeps going the way. Tell anybody else that's listening how they can find you, what your handles are, and all that stuff.
Well, it's real simple. I'm simple right now. My name's Tami Goodrich. I'm at TAMIG@KW.com. And my phone number is 207-298-0144. And I'm on Facebook as The Odd Couple at Keller Williams Realty with Lucy Tucker.
Awesome. You guys got an Instagram going?
We do have Instagram, but I'm just not so good at it. I like my human interaction face to face more. But I do have Facebook. You'll find me. You'll find me out there if you want to.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Please hang on. Don't hang up after we do our outro here. But appreciate everybody tuning into this. And remember, it's not just where you live; it's how you live. Perfect example of this right here. And we'll see you all next time.